Hi guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster and I just want to do a short video today about my EDC or everyday carry kit. It's something that I take around with me everywhere and it basically consists of a Swiss Army knife, a fire starter or fire steel, a little capsule that's got a few bits and pieces in there, and just a little lanyard of a bright colour that means I can find it if I drop it out of a pocket or leave it on the floor somewhere. Now this is the kind of thing that I keep in my pocket all the time. Different people have different things. This is not for prepping or for survival per se or anything like that, but it's just something that I find useful to keep in my pocket, and basically you know, if I ever did get into an emergency, how that would happen in the UK I'm not really quite sure, but it just allows me to do a couple of things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So what I'll do, I'll zoom in down here and I'll take you through it step by step. Okay guys, so this is it. This is my everyday carry. Now this either sits in my pocket more often than not, otherwise it might sit in my rucksack. Now to start off with, I've got a little Paracord lanyard in orange and yellow, just a bit of a marker, so if I'm out and about and I leave it on the floor somewhere, it's something nice and bright that lets me see what it is. Second part of this is my Swiss Army knife. Now this is a Swiss Army knife Farmer, and what this has is the Alox version, so you've got the metal handle rather than the traditional sort of red plastic one. There's no real reason for that, I just preferred the look of it personally. Now what you've got on here, you've got a standard Swiss Army knife blade. This is just under 3 inches long and it's non-locking. I mean, I won't go into the debate about the legality of carrying knives in the UK. I'll let people, you know, judge that and work out the do's and the don'ts for themselves. But from my personal circumstances, my understanding of the law is that provided the knife is less than 3 inches long and it doesn't have a locking blade, essentially you can carry that round to your heart's content. Now I tend to be sensible with this. If I'm going to and from work, if I'm out and about in the woods, this is in my pocket. If I was to be going out to a pub or a nightclub or something like that, this would stay at home for very obvious reasons. But the knife blade on this is pretty good. You know, about as good as you can get with a Swiss Army knife. I keep it relatively sharp, and you know, it's taking nice clean shavings off of a piece of wood here. You know, it's fine for making feather sticks. You know, you can do a little bit of wood carving with this, or at least certainly a little bit of whittling. You know, stuff like this. You can make yourself some tinder for fire lighting, which is obviously always good. And all in all, it's just a very nice standard knife blade. Now the next part on this, let's have a look. Probably this, which is the saw blade. Now I've heard a lot of bad reviews about these. You know, people say, oh, what's the point of having a saw, it's so small you can't do anything with it. Now to be honest, you're not going to cut down a tree with it. Let's be really honest about this. However, it does have its uses. If I just move the camera out a little bit and just grab this sort of smallish branch that I've got here. Now this is just a bit of birch branch that I had lying around. And if I'm out and about in the woods and I'm not going out for a camping trip, I'm not going for a day or more, I don't want to take my big backpack with my, my other saws in it, but I want to cut something of this size, this is actually fine. It takes a little bit longer than it would with a Laplander saw or something like that, but it is doable and it's fairly good saw. What you do have to remember with this is if you can do it like this. This is obviously a loose stick that I want to cut, so that's fine. I can move it around. If it's on actually attached to a tree, you might struggle a little bit. But what you're best off doing is once you've got kind of a quarter of the way in something this thick, just move the stick round so you can then carry on. So there we go. You know, it hasn't taken us ages to get through that. Alright, it's only a small piece of wood, and it's probably about as much as this saw can handle, maybe a little bit thicker. And again, if you want to go thicker than that, you can kind of go in gradient sections as you go along. But for what it is and for the size of it, it's actually not a bad little saw blade. It's quite sharp, and you know, it does what it's designed to do, cutting small bits of wood. And again, you know, that size, something smaller than that maybe. Normally, if I wanted to cut it down for maybe firewood to split out some kindling, I'd probably use an axe. But if I've gone out and I don't have an axe with me, then this little saw blade is absolutely great. You've got on one side a bottle opener with a flathead screwdriver bit. Now I use that quite regularly. It's a shame this doesn't have a Phillips screwdriver head on it. That's the only downside for me. But because this is kind of my everyday and bushcraft knife, I can get away without having that. On the other side, you've got a much smaller flat head. I'm not sure if you can see that particularly well there, and also a can opener. Now I've used these type of can openers all my life, and I think these are great. You know, a lot of people look at them and go, oh, they're so old-fashioned, they're not very good. I can open a tin with this in almost the same time it takes to use a sort of a more modern sort of, you know, plier grip and twist can opener. And you know, this is quite nostalgic for me, so I prefer using this. The other thing I've got on here is the awl. And now you've got a sharp blade here. You can't do a great deal of cutting with it. It's not a blade as is the proper blade on here. But the thing I use this for, and I'll do a video about firelighting at another time, but I've got a standard ferrocium rod here, and because this is quite sharp, it's actually really good for giving off sparks from a ferro rod. So as an example, now I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, you know, you're abusing this blade on here, you know, you're ruining a perfectly good blade. Well, that's absolutely true. However, the only thing I use this for, apart from maybe if I'm doing some sort of carving and I want to try and punch a hole into something, which is the other use for this tool, obviously. Yeah, and that's fine. You know, the point is still there. I'm not damaging the point by using it on a ferro rod. And you know, if I want to put a hole through something, you know, that you can also use it for that. Not sure how well you can see that there, but there is a small hole I've just put through there with this. So again, it's sort of a multi-use tool on this knife, and I find it quite useful for a couple of different things. So that's a Swiss Army knife. I mean, I highly recommend these to anybody. You know, if you want something small that can fit in your pocket, that can do a multitude of tasks, these are absolutely great. I tend to stay away from the Gerber and Leatherman multi-tools. You know, they do have more stuff on there. I find them not particularly comfortable to grip in the hand because they tend to be sort of squared off. But again, that's personal preference, it's entirely down to you. Next on here, I've got, this is from a company called Exotac, and it is a fire steel striker. Now the reason I went for this one, it was actually a gift from a friend of mine who knew I wanted one last Christmas. But basically it comes in this nice sort of keyring, fit in your pocket sort of style, and it's actually a really nice, well made anodised metal sort of bit of kit. And what you do is you unscrew the top section, which will reveal the fire steel. Just to give you an idea, this is a standard fire steel. It's about 10mm thick, and this is this one. So obviously it's shorter, it's thinner, and really this is designed as a sort of an emergency thing that you keep on you. You know, you can use it when you go camping and doing bushcraft. You know, there's no problem with that. But it is designed, in my eyes anyway, to sit there and just be used as and when needed. What you do, you unscrew this part here, screw this section back in, so there you've now got a nice long handle to grip onto, and the other end of this has got, hopefully you can see this well enough on the camera, it's got a machined piece of steel on the end of it, high carbon steel, for use as a fire striker. So obviously I can use the awl on here if I really want to, but this is what it's designed to be used with, and the idea is you just go, you know, and these are actually, although you're not going to cut yourself on them, these have been milled, so they're very, very sharp. I mean, hopefully you can kind of see that on the camera there. So you get really, really good sparks coming off of this, and I'm putting very little pressure on it. You know, if I was to really ramp up the pressure, you know, you get some really good sparks coming off of this. But that is my exotac fire striker. For anyone that's interested, I think this is the, let me double check, yeah, this is the Nano Striker XL. Now these are still available to buy, although I got this a little while ago. And what you've also got, you can actually unscrew the ferro rod, and you can see that the bottom here is threaded. And you can buy spares for this as well, so if you did want to use this as your everyday striker, but you're a little bit worried but it's quite thin, and that obviously, you know, it will wear out quickly if you use it a lot, then obviously you can buy spares for this, which is great. And then lastly on here, and this is my little bit for you know, my kind of emergency survival thing. This is just a little bullet shaped, it's actually plastic, and it's a sort of a waterproof capsule. You can just about see there's an O-ring on the end here which keeps it watertight, and if I undo this, what I've actually got inside, so undo this without ruining it, and I won't take this out completely because it can be a bit of a bugger to put back in, but that's basically a makeup removing cotton wool pad. In fact, you know what, I will take it out, I'll put another one in shortly. So what I've got here, this is a makeup pad that I stole off my wife's dressing table, and I've cut it down to size. I've actually squared it off so that it fits into this capsule properly, and this is basically just an emergency tinder material. So what I'll do, you fluff this up. So there you go, it's nice, all the fibres are exposed, there's lots of air inside these fibres, and if I use it as I'd intended it to be used, so you get your striker, and straight away you've got instant fire. Now obviously you would need to make sure that you've prepped your kindling, you know, you've got some suitable wood shavings, and some other small twigs and things to be able to go straight on top of this, because it doesn't burn for very long, but you know, in an emergency situation, as long as you understand fire lighting and how these things work, you know, you should be absolutely fine. So I hope that was interesting. I mean, obviously this is just my everyday carry, this is what I take around with me. I'll do a couple of other videos for kind of what I take when I go out bushcrafting, certainly in terms of fire lighting gear, and that kind of thing. You know, if there's anything else you'd like to see me review, you've got any comments and suggestions as to what maybe could be added on there, or your thoughts and comments on it, by all means leave me a comment in the box. If you want to hit subscribe, please feel free to do so, and hopefully I'll come back with some similar videos shortly. Thanks a lot.